Okay, so working on the next segment of the diorama build, it's now time to colour in all the rocks. So I'm using the Earth Colour Kit from Woodland Scenics. The box is actually empty at the moment. It does give you all the instructions that you need on the back side of the box on how to mix the paints, etc. But if this is something that you are interested in using, I really would suggest going to the Woodland Scenics, because they do some really great tutorials on that website on how to build these kind of dioramas. So basically the kit forms of 8 bottles that look like this. Now I know that doesn't actually seem a lot, but honestly this stuff goes a long way. It is highly concentrated. So you've basically got in the packet, you've got the 8 colours there. So you've got burnt umber, yellow ochre, raw umber, black, stone grey, white, concrete, and also slate grey. So for this particular part, because I want the rocks to be grey, I'm using the grey and the black. Now according to the instructions, what you need to do is you need to mix the softer colours up at 1:16 ratio. So basically the slate grey and, the grey and the black, I've mixed those up 5 millilitres of the paint pigment and then 80 millilitres of water. So you basically end up with something that looks a little bit like that, and that's the grey one, and then we've also got the black one there. And what you do following that, to bring everything into tone, you then need to put what they class as the dominant colour on, which again would be the grey. But with that, what you do is you need to mix that down even further. So that one is a ratio of 1:32. So I've done that in an ashtray, because that's the only other free container that I had. It was clean, there was nothing in there, honest. So I've put 2.5 millilitres of the stone wash in there, with 80 millilitres of water. Now looking on the website, the way to do this is on the rocks you need to get at least a third with the grey and at least a third with the black, and then you tie everything in with the dominant colour. So the idea is, on this stage, is to sort of do the leopard spotting technique, as they call it. And you can use anything really that you like. You can use a sponge or you can use a paintbrush, but I'm going to be using the sponge applicator that comes in the kit. One of the other things that you will need as well, by the way, is a jug of water. The main reason being is that when you switch from the grey to the black, you're going to need to wash the applicator out, and then again when you do the dominant colour you're going to need to wash that out again from the black to go to the dominant colour. Now I've only ever really done this once, so I would hardly call myself an expert in this, only doing it once. So I'm going to attempt to do this live on camera for you, just so you can see a little bit of how it should look. Now the idea is you just splodge it on anywhere you like, and just let it run. So here goes. So I'm just going to dip it in the grey one first, and then I'm just going to get rid of most of the excess on that. So I'm just going to start there and go like so, and then, as I say, you just let this run down any way you like it. It doesn't really matter about where we're going with this. You need to leave some white in there as well, because that does actually help bring out the colours. So we're just sort of splotching it on. Now, one of the other things that you can do as well is you can, with this, if you want to make it darker, you can actually put a little bit more pigment in, or just not dilute it down quite as much. So, as I say, just use your imagination and just splodge it around wherever you can, you know, wherever you see fit, wherever you want to, really. And as I say, this is quite messy. So it might be best to, when you're doing the surface, is just keep it covered up as much as possible. I'm doing this in the kitchen because it's easier to control the mess, I find, in the kitchen than anywhere else. So if we just go down to the sides of the rocks here and just sort of do it any way we like it. Don't have to be exact in anything, just do it as you feel like doing it. And hopefully what should happen is that when you wash it all in, it should actually all start to come in. So if we just go around to the side now. So you can just take your time on this as well, because, you know, this paint is obviously so thin that it's not actually going to really dry on you, unless you take about 100 years doing this. So we just get a little bit of the rock on the back side. That's it. And hopefully what will happen by the time everything's tied in, all the little details on this should actually start to come out. And we've got the big rock up here to do, and you can see there, just hopefully the way that just runs down. One of the other things that you can do according to the website is, if you're not happy with the way that it looks, you can spray this down with hot salty water, and then that will take most of the pigment away. So there you go. So that's how quick that was. That's just the grey wash on its the first stage of the wash. So I'm just gonna get rid of most of that out of the brush and then clean it in the clean water, and then I'm going to move on to the black. And again, it's just the same technique on the black as it was the grey. And you just splodge it around wherever you feel like. As I say, just leave some of it white. You don't need to go too mad. And just let the colours run into each other as well. Don't worry about the colours running into each other, it's all part of the effect. So it doesn't look very pretty at the moment, but by the time it's actually finished, it should look fairly good. Oh, I just dipped it in the grey, not the black, so I just washed the brush out. I'll move that out of the way so I don't make that mistake again. It's lucky I noticed that before we started splodging. Now, as I said, I mean, at the moment this doesn't look that good, but hopefully by the time we get all of the dominant colour on there, just to bring everything in, it should start to look pretty good. But what we're going to have to do first, before we do anything else, we can do the dominant colour next, and then what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to let that dry, and then we're going to have to come back and spray it down with the Woodland Scenic glue. And then once we've done that, we can go over it with the black wash after that. And that's my phone ringing, you can most probably hear, with the Deep Space Nine theme tune, which is quite appropriate. I'll pick that up in a minute. Let's just take some of that out because that did get stuck. Up here it doesn't matter so much because that is going to be done with grass or something. So I'm not too worried about getting too much in the way there. Okay, so that's done with that. So it does look a little bit messy at the moment, but hopefully by the time we put the dominant colour on, that should actually start to blend that all in together. So that's the sponge applicator done. Let's move that out of the way. Okay, so we're now on to the dominant colour, which is the 1:32 ratio. So I'll just make sure that this is mixed up quite nicely. Okay, so that's that done. So it's now time to just go along and just splodge this quite generously everywhere, and just let everything run into each other. As I say, if you're not happy with how it looks, you can always go in with some salty water, hot salty or warm salty water, sorry, should I say, just to help narrow that down again. But once this is dried, this should actually start to look quite good. It does take a little bit of time to settle in. So we're just going over everything with this. So it does make a bit of a mess of the display, but the good thing is the fact that we will be using grass. I mean, this is why this is one of the first jobs to do, so you can basically get everything in. Okay, so let's turn this around. We just, as I say, just need to wait for this to dry once it's done, and then go back over it with a black wash. And I think we might be changing the paper towels on the bottom of this as well, because they are just a tad wet now. Okay, let's get this rock up here done. Okay, so that's that now done. Let's just get a little bit more done on the front up here. But hopefully by the time the black wash is put onto this, it should start to pull together quite nicely. Okay, so that's about it for now. Let's get that washed out. So I'm just going to let that dry off now. And then once that's dried, I'll spray over that with the scenic glue that's watered down. And then I need to let that dry as well. And then once that's done, I'll be able to put the final black wash on that. So as soon as I got to that stage, I will come back to you. Okay, so I've skipped ahead a little bit, unfortunately. I got a bit carried away with what I was doing, but as you can see by the rocks, we've put the we sprayed the rocks down with the glue. Then we've put the black wash on. Then we've gone back over it with the glue to seal it in again. And I've also started on the earth shades. It does look a bit dark, the earth on that, but that's okay. Most of that is actually going to be covered up with, in fact all of it really will be covered up with grass. I will just have like a few areas around the edges here where there won't be any grass, so it'll just be the earth that's showing through. I have used the earth. Oh, let's put that back in camera. Sorry, I do apologise. I have used the earth brown for that one, which is the Revel Aqua colour, and that's number 87. I will be going over in a few areas with this one, which is the dark earth, which is the 82. Just mainly because, you know, you never really get earth looking exactly the same everywhere, so I just go over in a few areas just to highlight it with that colour. And once that's dried, I'll be able to then seal that and then put the grass on. So as soon as I've made some more progress to this, I will come back to you. So we've got the grass down now on the diorama, and hopefully you can see from there that this is now actually starting to take shape. You can't really see most of the brown underneath, but around the edges certainly I've decided to leave it just the earth colour. There are a few patches around the edges of the rocks that are brown, and you've got less grass sort of going into the entrance of that little cave there. So that's quite good. One of the other things I've done, and I'm not sure whether this is actually going to show up on camera, but we can give it a go, see if it does. Let me just bring the camera in there to this part of the rock. I'm not sure whether it is going to show up on camera or not really, because it is quite subtle. But what I've done around these areas, around there, and tracing down the rocks through there and down this area and down through there, is I've used some burnt umber, and I've kind of made a wash of that and then just put that down the rocks face and down this area as well, just to try and simulate the mud and the dirt running down the sides of the mountain through sort of rainy periods and what have you, because in these areas I am going to have little bushes coming through, so you would naturally have a little bit of earth in there. So I just thought it'd be kind of neat to try and simulate soil running down the edges of some of those cracks and crevices there. So hopefully you might be able to see it, but I don't think you can actually. I think you can see it a little bit there on this edge, and a little bit down this end. I'll just see if we can zoom in a little bit more to see if we can actually get that zoomed in. Yeah, you can just about see a little bit coming down this point here, but not too much. I mean, and just across there you can see a little bit as well. But as I say, I just wanted it to be subtle more than anything else, and I think I have achieved that. And then within these little cracks here, underneath there and across this bit there, and then if we just pull out a little bit for you, and then if we can go up, see if we can get a good shot of the top of the stand. I'm not sure whether we will do. Okay, yeah, that's actually coming into focus there. So we've got this little crevice here as well. So I'm going to put some little bushes and whatnot there as well. And then in this little section down there, I'll put some bushes in, and that part there, and a couple maybe in there, and maybe a little bit in there, and then down there as well. And hopefully that'll finish that off. But hopefully, if you can see, if we just zoom back out again, or pan out should I say, sorry, hopefully you can see by looking at the stand, looking at the base, it's not even, which is great, which is what we want really, because you'll never see an absolutely truly flat surface in nature. But I think that's come out pretty well so far. I just need to get some, I'm just still waiting for my trees to come in, and the bushes as well. I'm not quite sure where I'm going to put those yet, but I'm kind of thinking with the trees I might put them around this area, but I'm not quite sure yet. I might put one there and then maybe two there, or one there and then one there and then one there. I'm just really at the moment not too sure, to be fair. It depends on when they come in and as to how big they are. I mean, I know that they're for a 00 scale, which would fit in with the 172 scale model, but I'm just really not quite sure until I see them in person. Not really too sure on the sizes, so it depends on how big they are as to where I really am going to put them. Definitely still stuck on the idea of having one of my little Starfleet figures sort of coming out the cave, or most probably the other one too, sort of like a little bit further along, as though they're coming out with their little bags with samples and what have you. And as I say, just a smattering of bushes across the place, most probably some around this area as well. You know, but again, until I get the stuff in, I'm not too sure, so I'll just see, you know, how the land lies, no pun intended, when all that stuff comes in. Hopefully that should be with me within the next few days. So that'll give this a really good chance to dry off, because I really sort of damped this down as well with a lot of the Woodland's Scenic glue. I mean, this is quite runny, as you can see in there. I mean, that's like the consistency of milk. So I just need to let that dry. We've got the hole already sort of in place now for the pole. That's not as big as it needs to be. It does need to be 8mm in size to get the pole down there. But once everything's all dried up fully, then I'll go back in and do that. I just needed to get the hole in so I could start working on the actual base for this at the same time as well. So that's about it for the moment. I will catch up with you in part 15 of this build, where hopefully we'll get all the trees in and we'll get the base put together, and hopefully, if we're lucky, we'll be able to bring the runabout back and get that mounted onto the base as well. So keep fingers crossed on that one. I can't really see it taking too much longer to do now, to be quite honest. All the fiddly work's been done. So I will catch up with you in the next update. So until then, thanks for watching, and please do take care.